G'day Broadsiders. When painting your Broadside Empires of Steel minis, use a light grey undercoat. Make sure this is completely dry before you come back and hit it with a wash of black. So black wash on the guns and on the ship. Don't worry about applying paint to the underside of the ship because we need that to stick to the base. So if you put paint on it, it tends to come off, which you don't want to do. Alright, next process is to paint on the light wood colour onto the surface of your ship. It doesn't really matter if you go over any of the lumps and bumps when you do this. We'll come back later and pick those up, don't worry about it. Alright, after that, you want to brush on a tan or a dark brown or a light brown or a dark brown wash around where the superstructure, where the grey meets the wood colour. Once you've done that, you want to then blacken those masts. So blacken the masts, but try and leave the observation areas at the top of the mast in the grey. That's more obvious in some ships than others. When it comes to details, you want to definitely paint in the boats, the ship's boats. I use white. Ship's boats can be grey, but I find that the white adds a little bit of a colour to it. There are other areas you can paint in, or the tops of the Royal Navy turrets in Brunswick green, which is a green with a bit of blue in it. And then you can paint in a dark grey on your German Navy turret roofs as well. Now, if you've got aerial recognition markings with those circles, you want to side brush those in white. What I mean by that is use the side of your brush to pick up the detail and sort of smear the detail on rather than paint it on using the point. There are some areas on a ship that sometimes during the ship's life might have that burgundy brown coloured flooring. You can paint that into areas if you have some kind of reference somewhere that you can find for those colours. Otherwise, just leave them all grey, it's all fine. Don't forget to stick the turrets onto the ship. That's pretty important. That happens next. And there you go. You should have a ship that looks something like this. Now once you've done all of that, come back and all those lumps and bumps that you have painted over, and anywhere where you've gotten one paint that isn't meant to be there, come back with your grey now, your undercoat grey, and clean those areas up. For the lumps and bumps, again, I suggest turning your brush horizontally and then using the side of the brush to pick up the little lumps and bumps. You may need to paint the deck colour back on after you've done that, but it'll just be touch-ups. You know, it's better to have these things perfect right from the word go. All right, so let's declare your ships painted. Let's go on to the bases. After you've painted your ships, you're going to want to stick them to the acrylic base. As you can see in this picture, we use Posca pens to mark in the lines. But you can use any paint pens or brush-on paint. It's fine. It doesn't matter if you get the paint everywhere. When you peel the protective cover off the base, it'll take the excess paint away with it, leaving a nice, neat line. Don't bring all the paint lines into the middle because the ship will be covering that anyway. The line that goes through the X, you'll paint green. And the X itself, you'll paint red. Once these are both dried, peel off the protective cover. And you'll see that the paint comes away with it, except for the nice, neat lines in the middle. Peel all of the protective surface and then peel the back. The next thing to note about your acrylic base is it's rounded at the front and square at the back. So it has rounded edges at the front of the base and then it has square edges at the back. So the square edges is where you're going to stick the name of the ship, and then the rounded edges at the front is where the ship should be traveling towards, or where the bow gets stuck down. Alright, and that's where we're up to. We're sticking the ship to the base itself. Ideally, we want to stick the ship over the center of the green line. So the center of the ship should have a green line going through it. But that only works if the bow doesn't then overlap the front of the base. So if the bow overlaps the front of the base, you want to move the ship back so the bow is touching the front of the base only. We use super glue to glue the ships to the bases, but whatever works for you, works for you. Once your ship's stuck down, flip it over, and then you'll be able to see the ship from the underside. What we want to do now is paint on the wake. So you get yourself a really, really old, big, thick brush that you're probably going to throw out, and then dab on white paint around the silhouette of the hull of the ship. In this picture here, you can see it much better than I can describe it. The more practice you get at this, the better you'll get at it. But basically, you want a dabbing action. I find that just looks best on table. And then perhaps a dabbing and a turning action at the same time around the front of the ship makes the water look like it's been churned up even more. When you freshly put the paint on the brush, it's best to do the bow of the ship area and then the rear of the ship area, because that's where the water is most churned up. And then as the paint wears off the brush, you do along the side of the ship because it doesn't break the water as much. Once you've done that, you can stick your sticker down for the name if you haven't already done that. And you should find that the ship is stuck to the side that has the grooves in it, and so is the name. And on the other side, you have the paint halo, which is the wake. All right, so on one side of the base, there are the grooves with the lines you painted in. The ship is stuck over the top of those. And at the back of the base, the name tag is stuck there. You flip it over, and then it should be smooth except for the white paint that you've dabbed on.